Welcome back to the show. Well, one of the perks of living in Arizona is getting to enjoy the outdoors and this great weather we have most of the year.
But we also need to be very cautious and keep our family safe from things like bees and snakes. So, of course, Captain Barrett Baker with the Tucson Fire Department has some tips for us. And you've also brought us kind of like a nice-looking snake and bee.
Yeah. Not all bees are bad.
Some props.
Yeah, I'm a bee. I'm friendly. We brought a friendly bee as well.
A friendly bee, kind of like the spelling bee.
Exactly.
So, but we do, this is the time of year where we're going to see, because you were even telling us how many calls you guys have had recently.
Sure. I mean, obviously, we've had so many of the citrus trees and things that are blooming, flowers are blooming, and so what are bees looking for? Pollen. So they're out and about, very, very active. But just over the last 2 weeks, so from the 11th to today, we've had 17 calls just in the city for bee swarms. But I think the important thing about that is just because you see that swarm, that doesn't mean that they're going to attack you. Most of the time, at this point in time, again, they're there just to pollinate, and then they're going to move on. And a lot of times they might be there for up to 24 hours, maybe even a little bit more than that. But then they'll be gone. So those 17 calls that we've gone on, we haven't actually had one of those bad moments to where they've attacked somebody. Now, will that happen? Generally, yes. We do see that once or twice a year, where unfortunately they're protecting the queen bee. And then all of a sudden you see an animal, or obviously worst case scenario is a person get attacked. So there are some things that we can do to not put ourselves in those positions, though.
I think it's so great we're talking about this today, because I think as kids growing up in Arizona, there are so many myths that we hear.
Right.
And there are actually a couple you're going to talk about that I would have done had I been swarmed by bees until today, now that I know. So will you tell us what we are actually supposed to do if we do find ourselves surrounded by bees?
You're going to probably get warned by the bee hive or the swarm, and they're going to just send out a couple of the little bees, and they're going to ping you a little bit and basically give you that warning to get away. So if you notice that all of a sudden there's some bee activity, go the other way, because again, that's just the warning sign for you. Worst case scenario, you know, that moment that we hope never comes, though you do get attacked by a swarm of bees, they're going to go, I mean, you're going to be completely enveloped in bees. And so if you can, try to protect your face, because they're going to be everywhere. Eyes, ears, nose, mouth, all of that. So try to pull a shirt over your head if you're able to do that. And then it's time to basically Usain Bolt. And we are running. And we're running as fast as we can, and we're going to try to get into shelter. So if you can get into a car, if you can get to a house, something to protect yourself from the bees following you, that's going to be best case. Run, though, because they can follow you up to about a quarter mile. So if you can't get into shelter, if you're out in the middle of the desert, keep running. And that's going to be difficult, like I said, because they're going to be all over. But that's the best case scenario, is to get away from them as fast as possible. Human nature, if I see water, I'm going to jump into a swimming pool, but they'll wait for you. And you will have to come up. You know, we're not fish. I don't have gills, and I don't think you do either. So you're going to come up for air, and then you're going to get stung then. So, you know, that's probably not going to be the way to solve that problem. It's just a matter of getting away from them.
Now, if you do get stung, I know people say try to take the stingers out. Is that?
Well, you can take the stinger out. You do want to do that as quickly as possible, but you're not going to do it with tweezers. If you use tweezers, you're actually going to squeeze the stinger, and it's going to inject more venom into you. So take out a credit card. Even, you know, I've heard of even a dull knife being used before, but you really want to just try to scrape the stinger out, and by doing that, you'll prevent the venom from continuing to be injected into you.
Brilliant. Okay, speaking of venom, one of my least favorite topics on earth, snakes. Help us with snakes.
Yeah, well, they're scary. I mean, at the end of the day, again, I mean, you see movies, Anaconda, they really strike fear into people's thing. But most of the time, I will tell you this: a snake is not on a mission like Jaws to go out and, you know, hunt you down and bite you. So if we can avoid snakes by not basically putting ourselves in harm's way, that's going to be best case. They're going to be active in March and April when temperatures start increasing, and they're going to be active. So they're most active when the sun is going down, so about 5 o'clock, I guess a little bit later here in Tucson, but that's when they're going to be out and about. So if you're on the trails, then just keep your eyes peeled. And I mean, that's really the most important part. If you can stay on the trail and, you know, really scan ahead, then that's going to be a great way to avoid an encounter with the snake. Try to avoid walking off trails into the brush, into the cactus, things that you can't see, because they're hiding from us for the most part during the day. And again, they're not going to be trying to come out and bite you unless provoked. And it's funny when you start learning a little bit more about something like a rattlesnake, they can't jump 25 feet to bite you. I mean, if it's a 4-foot rattlesnake, they're really going to be able to go about 2 feet. So that doesn't mean that you have to avoid them by going 100 yards out of your way. You really just take a few feet and move out of the way, and they should leave you alone. And again, if we don't provoke them, but the number one thing with rattlesnake bites is the hands and the feet. So don't reach into places that you can't see. And when it comes to the feet, you know, Tina, your shoes are probably not going to be the best thing in the world.
This is not what I should go hiking with?
We're going to go with this instead of that. Sorry, I didn't shine mine up, so I feel bad about that. But open-toed shoes and sandals, avoid those when you're out and about. Go with something like a hiking boot. That way, if they do bite you, they might not actually get the fangs inside of you.
And then, of course, if you do get bit, we want to stay calm. We want to keep the wound below our heart, not above it, and call 911.
You talk about a couple of the myths. Don't do this, you know, don't cut your arm open, don't suck it out. Exactly. Stay calm, keep the bite lower than your heart rate, and then call 911 and get to the hospital as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Captain Baker, thank you so much for joining us
Stay safe.
today.
Stay safe.
Absolutely. And for more information and safety tips, you can go to fire.tucsonaz.gov.